uploaded it.
I don't know.
Okay, I want you to say that again. I just want you to repeat it so that you, let's make it solid here. Because our last session, we really went into because you were like, I have these physical issues that are coming up. And I remember at one point you're like, well, yeah, I always get this rash when I binge. And it's like in the moment you're like, you're totally fine with that rash. Unless it's serious.
I haven't gotten this rash, this particular type of rash, but I've gotten rash.
Yes, well, what I connected to was when you were like, yeah, I always get this rash when I binge. And it was almost like you were okay with it unless it's serious. Then it sucks and I can feel the pressure rising. Because what that means is if it is in direct correlation to your binging and the weight exacerbation, all of a sudden, if it's life-threatening, what has to do with your food intake? So what you're using food for is being threatened by your physical reaction. If you have to stop.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're like, I don't want to deal with reality. I need to keep my food consumption. But if I have something physically limiting or serious where I could die, now that's a threat to my eating, and you're stuck in a corner around, I want to stay alive, but if I let go of food, I'll die. But eating is going to kill my body. But right? Does that make sense? So the physicality of what's happening is killing you. And what you're using food for is keeping you emotionally alive.
Yeah, if I was thinking that what I'm holding on to is this last bit of peace around how, I do have some independence, and the fear of losing even though I'm slowly losing my independence and not really in reality about how that's happening, I still feel like if I give this, if I don't, I'm afraid of losing losing the terror is coming from the rash and thinking that it's, something like cancer or my liver's dying or my kidneys are failing or, I have God knows what. And, the fear of just having no independence whatsoever. But my world is so tiny now.
That you have no
I'm holding on to what I did have, the independence that I do have. And I realize that I can't, that what I have is really, that's what I was holding on to. That's why I was still holding on to the food. Because I can't, and that's why I can't let go of it or couldn't let go of it. It's because I was holding on to what I know, which is the only way I know how to deal with things. And so I don't have to, but now I'm learning that I have a different way of dealing with it is to face it, because, in reality, there is not a lion chasing me.
No, but your brain doesn't know the difference between what you believe is bad and what you think you can't handle and a bear that is chasing you. And it manifests physically the same way. That's why I tell people, and that's why I said to you, expect you're going to get murdered. For me, it came across that horrific and the terror in it. And what you had said is, well, I did face it, but it wasn't as horrible as you prepared me for it, which is awesome for you, right? Because
it's not. Once I actually, the thing is, it keeps coming back.
So you have to keep facing it. Yeah, because you might have more than one thing that's bringing it on. It can be a variety of things that bring it on, but you have to keep on surrendering to it like waves. Oh, and here comes another crashing wave. Well, just go limp to this one too. Like seaweed on the ocean. Yeah. Good for you. How does it feel to finally have faced something you've been terrified to face?
Well, for a moment, I had, it didn't last very long. It's very difficult to do, so I just allowed myself to just be able to, I ended up cleaning my house yesterday from nervous energy.
Okay, that's coping. But we'll take it, you just, at least you're recognizing that. Notice you just recognize that. You know what you're doing when you're doing it. That in and of itself is good.
Yesterday I decided my rash was because I was allergic to my cat all of a sudden. So I started... You're trying to control your fear. Yeah. So
what happens when you go into your fear is, what does it feel like? The moment
It
you
feels
let
like-
yourself go limp and go into acceptance and just facing it and existing with it, doing nothing about it, what does it feel like?
It feels like I don't feel so crazy.
Do you feel like it allows you to breathe a little bit? Like there's a sense of freedom in it? Do you ever get a sense of like, I don't have to be afraid of that anymore?
It seems like it's not a big deal when I actually allow myself to feel it. It's like, well, like I was thinking, because you were right. It does come back to feeling like I'm going to die. And, you know, when I face, and I keep going in and out of that because yesterday, you know, when I had faced that, I was like, well, of course we're going to die. Every single person dies. And, you know, it happens to all of us. So why is it such a big deal? And I thought, it can be painful. And then I thought about, you know, in nature where the lions like eat people when they're alive. And I thought, that's pretty painful. So how do we know it's not going to be painful? So.
Well, you don't, but this is why the question you have to ask yourself is, if that is the way that it's going to happen, can you handle it? Can you go into acceptance as it's occurring? To go, okay, well, here's my ending. Here's how it ends. And you accept it. Does it make sense? If it's occurring, you got it. Exactly. Because what happens when you actually go, oh, this is what's happening, and you accept it, is your whole entire being relaxes. And the question you have to ask yourself, and this is what you go in with fear. And I love that you went to worst case scenario, because if you're of pain, you went right to, I'm alive and aware that my brain and skull are being crunched on and I can hear it by an animal, right? I know, I love that. That's something I would have done, which is like, I'm going to go into worst case scenario, because if I can't handle that, how am I going to face anything close to it? And so you go into, once you're aware that's what's happening, you go into acceptance. Okay.
Well, you know how people are always saying, you know, God will take care of you and ask God for help. And I'm like, we live in a world where if you live in the wild, people eat you while you're still alive.
Yeah, usually you're suffocating.
How is that someone looking out for you? If that's the way the world is set up, I don't get it.
Well, that sounds like a fantasy. And it sounds like a fantasy world to think that whatever your bias and needs are, that God's going to go, okay, great, I'm going to serve her that just because she asked for it. I'm going to take care of her just because. And usually what you're asking God is something you've been brainwashed to ask for, like a nice new car and a great big house.
Well, for the person that's eating me, they're like, yay, I get to eat.
Well, of course, that person's prayers were answered. That animal's prayers were answered. So who does God love more?
The whole point is, I guess what I'm saying is, there's no...
It is what it is, right?
Some people, you know, the person that ate me, the lion
animal
that ate me is going to get eaten by somebody else in the wild. So we all have the same fate, so I guess...
Once it occurs, you accept it. The question is, can you do that? So that's my point, is when the fear arises. So let's talk through that. Fear arises, and what happens if you feel, I can't handle it? What's going to happen?
I'll end up eating because of the insanity that...
Well, that right there is your controlling mechanism of choice. You're trying to control your feelings of inadequacy. I can't handle it, so I'm going to do something to control that fear. So I distract myself. I'm going to repress. You know, you could say food represses your fear. It's not that the fear goes away. You still have that internal fear. You're just trying to hide it, push it away, avoid it. It's like hiding in a cave, right? Think of it as a hiding mechanism. So if you never really face that fear, you're always going to have to do something about it, because that's an area of insecurity you have inside yourself. You feel insecure to handle it. So when you have that insecurity, when you look at it, when you look at that fear, in essence, what are you doing when you sit in it and look at it? You're handling it.
Yeah.
The problem is you've never really looked at it because you just assumed I can't handle it. Therefore, I won't look at it, and let's just immediately do something to distract, to deny, to deflect, repress, to blame on something else. And underneath it all, you are responding to the actual fear coming from your lack of ability. So if you look at the fear again, you could say, well, if I felt like I was capable of handling that, well, what would happen to the fear?
It would go away.
Correct. So
I would feel,
you can handle it, and so you wouldn't have the same response. So I want you to ask yourself this question then. Is it the animal that's going to eat you for dinner that you're afraid of, or is it the fact you don't think you could handle it? Like you couldn't just go, here we are, here's what's happening. It's don't you agree? Like if you can handle dying, for example, when you're aware the moment you're dying, that death is calling and you are dying, the body is eliminating, right? You from it, and you're about to pass on. Are you going to be able to handle that? Or are you going to scratch at the surface to stay alive because I can tell my body's retreating from this existence?
Yeah. Well,
go into reality, not your assumption. Imagine you become aware, oh, it's time. This life is over.
Yeah, you just accept it. There's like a feeling of, yeah, I was thinking that last time. You know, I was thinking,
See, this is the first time you've actually thought about it.
Oh, no, I was thinking about my life, and I was like, I got really sad because I thought, I've been kind of an asshole because I've not really been there for people, and because I've been so ashamed of
your own shit. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's and it's like in one respect I've been a very selfish, self-absorbed person, and then on the other hand, I really couldn't function, So it's like, and I thought, well, finally I realized that if there's one thing that I've done, if I die tomorrow, at least I will have some insight into what is actually wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And I've had, this whole life. At least I know that before I die, and that was enough. And I'll make good sleep.
Yeah, because if you get a chance, let's just throw this out there. Let's just say God has mercy on you, and He says, you know what? You learned so much, and you suffered a lot to figure that out. I'm going to give you another chance. Just hold on to that wisdom. You're going to get a new mom. You're going to get a new body. You're going to get a whole new sucky environment, right? In a new way. You would never do it the same way. I guarantee that. Ever.
Right.
Think of all the things you've learned just about how do you want to relate to your body. If you were given another body, how would you want to feel about it?
I would. I wouldn't care so much what it looked like.
Me neither.
I would just be happy that it worked.
Right? Wouldn't you just be like, I would just be like, okay, do I have fingers? Okay, I only have 3 fingers. That's fine. If I only have 3, I only have 3. That's all I have. That's great. I'll work with that. I can walk. Okay, I'm born in Venezuela. I'm Venezuelan. Great, cool. Okay, let's go. What is it? And you go into adapting immediately. See, that's what you just figured out. I would adapt. I would accept it as it is right then and there, because if you don't, you're about to repeat yourself again. And the other thing I remember thinking, and I don't know if you've gone this far with it, is, okay, well, what if my parents are assholes? I will just accept them as that. I will do the best I can to not attach to their crazy bullshit. I will forgive them as they're crazy. And as soon as I have the liberty to leave, I will. And I will never lose sight of my truth again, whatever that is. I will always stay in touch with the soul and who I really am from the inside. I want to keep that. I want to honor that. I will adapt to the culture I'm in, to the parents I have. I will honor them, but I will not become what their problems are, and I will start from right there, which is kind of where you're at, right?
Yeah. I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've let go of a lot of. I definitely see my mother differently, and
that's huge.
I think what little resentment I had at my father is really just gone, because I think the only resentment that I had towards him was that he wasn't there for my mom, or for, he didn't help come take care of me when she was so sick. But I really, that was really easy to let go of, because I didn't really have any kind of relationship with him at all.
So you don't really know or understand his circumstance, or how he related to your mom, or what was going on. So whatever the reason was, it was strong enough that he had to deal with the pain of leaving a child behind. You can just assume that. It was painful. Whatever it was, it sucked for him.
Yeah, it's not, I'm not angry anymore, or resentful.
God, that feels so good, too, to know what that feels like, to just forgive other. Oh, my God. Good for you. Whoa, holy shit. What's happening, Heather? What the heck is going on here? You have just. Holy shit.
I might die next month.
Now that you figured this out, right?
But since I'm clearly falling forward, I have to go back to the doctor.
Oh.
But anyway.
I'm so excited for you. You figured it out. Peace and enjoyment. I love it, because maybe this was the only purpose for you to be in this life, was to figure this out. This right here.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, first of all, what do you need from the body? Can you do that with this one, even in its current state? First of all, you got to forgive yourself for doing the best you could with what you were aware of and coping the way you did without awareness. We're stuck, I think, in that childhood state of mind. You never really came out of it, and so that's so forgivable, right? And it is sad. It's like, oh my God, holy shit. And to become aware is just amazing. To me, that's like fortunate. Don't you agree? To go, holy crap, I'm aware of this shit before I die. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so amazing. And but it does take a willingness to go into dying to become aware. That's why, to me, when people face these feelings of fear, you're facing death, and it really forces you to look at what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, and it kind of shakes you into reality. Like, wake up before you actually die, And so it's almost like you're waking up. You're waking up. This is amazing. I'm so proud of you right now. You know what's crazy too is that takes nothing. You're doing nothing except going into your fear, which you do nothing to do that, because it's gonna arise. It's not like it arises, and you just face it. And what it takes to face it is courage, just to do it. You have nothing to lose. All it takes is a moment of you're willing to face what you've been avoiding for decades, and you're right. I do remember this. When I did it, it was like, oh, that was it? That's all I had to do? I've been like killing myself avoiding this, when all I had to do was do nothing and face it, but I just didn't have the courage to do it, nor did I have the suffering that kind of would have forced me into the courage, right? Because that's really where you're at, is you've had enough suffering at this point, and it's manifesting physically, to where you really need the courage to just face it either way. So this is going to kill you. That's going to kill you. You might as well face what's going to kill you, which is why you're eating food first. Why not? Same feeling. Feels like you're going to die. And the willingness to do that is in effect what it takes. right? It's like the feeling you have of I can't handle it. Well, when you actually sit and look at it, what are you doing? You're handling it.
I'm dealing with it.
You're handling it. That's it. You could say, well, when I eat food, I'm handling it. Well, not really. That's not handling it. You're running from it. When you do nothing and you face it and you look at it and you let the story come out of it, now you're handling it. So again, the running away and hiding and distracting with food, you can see that's an illusion of handling it. But in reality, you're just controlling it. So there's a difference between controlling it and handling it. And you need to know the difference.
Yeah, well, I understand the difference.
Yeah.
Controlling it is cleaning my house.
Yes, exactly. Eating food, cleaning my house, watching TV, getting on Facebook, going shopping, online clicking, the layers and layers, or blaming someone. I'm handling it with anger. I'm mad. What is that going to do?
Yeah.
You're not really handling it. So when you let go of all of your weapons and your armor and all the controlling aspect of repressing your fear, when you stop repressing it and it starts to bubble up and you surrender and look at it willfully, just the act of doing that is in effect handling it. It handles, and all of a sudden the fear doesn't need to be there anymore because you just faced it. You don't need to be afraid of that anymore because you realize your fear was irrational.
Yeah.
Because you were irrationally thinking you couldn't handle it, right? It's like I never faced it because I thought I couldn't handle it. But once I faced it and I was like, oh, that's it, and I can handle it, all of a sudden, do you have fear of it anymore? No, because this idea I now can handle. Again, the idea with a sense of I can't handle that creates fear.
I wonder if our society celebrated death instead of mourned it, if that would make a difference in how we relate to it.
I think so, but I don't think most people are aware that they're being driven about it in fear of it. I also think that if you look at movies and horror films and they love to glamorize the terror. There's something about terror that people enjoy, right?
Yeah, I don't get that.
I know. Right, but they make so much more money, consuming weapons and armor, in terms of diets and body image and, here's how you can feel better about yourself. I just don't think people are consciously aware of what they're trying to feel better about. Partly because the fear of dying because of a bear is so uncommon, right? That's not really a threat unless you're in Alaska and during certain seasons, you're going to get eaten by a bear, right? So right now, we don't have that same threat. What's more threatening in society is being shunned, abandoned, rejected. It's that our primitive, tribal desire to be in a pack, right? To to feel like I belong somewhere and people like me. That's more triggering to death. And that's not as obvious for people. That's where your trigger came from. Obviously, you have an overall fear of pain and death. You have that too. But this primal instinct to avoid judgment and criticism comes from a wired response to, years and thousands of years of true, being shunned into the wilderness to survive on your own, right? We didn't have such mass production of food to where we don't have to be in a tribe to eat, right? Whereas even just 200 years ago, 100 years ago, your food resources were definitely connected to your community, the local farmers, the local people that were producing these foods and these goods, and you relied on them. So there was a tribe kind of an environment that we still had. I think over the last 100 years with, the production of food in mass quantities, And, just the current way that we live, it's so counter to our evolution, which was in small tribes. They think humans were in packs of 20 to 30 people. We stayed in small little packs. And that's where they believe our wiring around fear of being abandoned was legitimately life-threatening. And so we still respond to rejection as if it's like a bear is breathing down our neck. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. We all respond that way, except for people who can handle it. And that's our goal. Can you handle it? Because it's inevitable. You're going to be rejected at this point. You've handled it. Well, you've controlled it quite well, right?
What do you mean rejected? Like,
I don't like you. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to be around you.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you're not good enough.
That, and, yeah, and then there's not just automatic feeling that I'm going to be rejected, so
I don't need to try.
That's enough to anybody. Yeah,
So can you see you're trying to control that fear? You're not actually handling it. You're not actually facing it. You're still trying to control that by avoiding, by kind of sabotaging, right? I'd rather not get in a relationship because I can't handle rejection.
I don't think that's true. I tried to get in relationships and they just didn't work.
Yeah. Well, and how have you controlled your feelings about it in the past? Through food consumption? Dieting? You might have.
I deal with eating, with everything,
So you really never maybe have faced some of those feelings. You've always repressed them and tried to control them with some mechanism. I don't know. You might have gotten past that one. You might have. So you might have faced.
It takes two people to have a relationship. If the other person, I've met a lot of men that just want to have sex, which is surprising to me, considering that you're supposed to be attractive. You would think that.
Well, it's up to the man to think you're attractive. Keep that in mind. It's not you have your ideals of what you think a man would like, but then there's men who actually like bigger women, and you can't tell them they don't like your body.
Well, I've met a lot of men that just want to have sex, but they don't want a relationship, and so in the last, just about every guy that I've tried to develop something with, and so I just gave up because I got tired of being used for sex, and and because of Facebook, you pretty much connected to the whole freaking world for the rest of your life in some way. So the most of them are in a relationship, so it's not that they don't want a relationship. So
they just are attracted to you. So, but the beauty of your willingness to go into what we're going into is that you let it all go. And it's like, okay, if I get eaten alive by a tiger, I can accept that. If a person really wants to hang out with me and wants to develop a relationship, great. If he wants to abandon and reject me, I can handle that too, because I can handle being eaten alive by a tiger. You go into, can I handle it at this point? What can't you handle? Look at what you have handled in this lifetime.
Yeah, it's just so much shit to deal with, to try to meet somebody and then to try to explain, you don't want to tell someone right away that, you can't make up your mind if you want to be in a relationship with someone, at the beginning, but then if they act like they just want sex, you're like, oh, I'm not going to have sex if I'm in a relationship. Well, then they think you want a relationship, and then it scares them off. And
and at least you'll get sex out of having, at least you'll have sex with someone.
I try to be upfront.
Yeah.
Men that just want to be
casual.
It's like the thing now. And so I try to be, if you don't mention it, and then they try to have sex with you, and they think you're not interested, it's not like I just don't know how to do it.
Well, don't worry about it right now. I wouldn't worry about it right now because you're working on yourself first, and that's where you really should go. But ultimately, when you go into these fears and you actually handle them, you'll find that there's really nothing for you to be afraid of putting yourself out there. Whether you want to have sex with someone casually or you don't, you want a relationship or you don't, it'll all work out. And in the end, you have nothing to lose because you're alone right now. You're going to be alone in a month when you die, so you can just relax and enjoy yourself.
I have this rash, so I'm going to,
right. You are kicking butt. Say that again?
I just want to know what it is so I can deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the reality is at this point, it is what it is, and it may be handleable and it might not. So I just am really, really excited and hopeful. And hopefully you're starting to feel a little hopeful because we're actually getting to what's underneath all this.
Yeah, I am excited. I hope I live long enough
to keep on going?
Yeah.
Well, you'll find that all it takes is those moments you let yourself contemplate. It's like the moment you sit there and realize, oh, I'm cleaning my house. I'm a nervous wreck. Which is fine. If you really think it's allergies, you should clean your house.
That's part of the reason I was doing it, because I'm going to have someone come and clean the carpet, so I have to,
oh, yeah.
clean, and so that was part of it. But then I started to enjoy it, which I've never enjoyed it before, ever.
Well, you know what? You've kind of resolved some of your mommy issues. I'm not surprised. All of a sudden, you're the true person you should have been always. You're now all of a sudden becoming real.
But I'm not binging. The thing is, even though I have this rash, I was able to clean my house because I feel better.
Yeah. Well, for sure. So now you're like, oh my God, so if I can handle my fears and I don't need to go out and binge, because here's the thing, you don't really want to. You don't want to binge. I know you don't. It sucks.
No.
I know you don't. And so that's why every time you used to say, oh, it's because the food was so good, I'd be like, that's a lie. You don't like the binging. What you like is what it's hiding, right? You like that it keeps you away from that fear. There's what you like, and that's normal. Like I said, who wouldn't want to get rid of that type of fear? You responding to get away from that fear is normal. It's just gotten to the point where it's taken over your life, it's impacting your life, and you might want to face it if you want to stop this issue with food, right? And stop having these physical consequences. So you got to face what's underneath it all. So once you start facing it, you do develop a sense of confidence. It's like, holy shit, what can't I handle? I have handled living in a 400-pound body. That's not easy, right? You've handled relationships where you're used for sex. You've handled that. Think of all the layers of what you are capable of. Incredible. You're so capable. You just didn't see it because you never let yourself find out. Now you get to find out. And you'll find that it does kind of evolve and it starts to snowball. And then all of a sudden you're going to go, oh my God, there's something here I'm afraid of. And you're going to go back and eat. And you're going to go, shit, I need to face what I'm afraid of. And I'm scared out of my mind, but I have to do it. But because now there's a way that you can do it. It's just a matter of that going back into that vulnerability. And you may not. You may never binge again. You may have binged your last binge. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me either way. But like you said, it's like the wave comes up, another thing comes up, and I have to face it. And it's like, yeah, you're going to have a lot of them. Think of how much you've isolated yourself from having to face these things. And they might be small things. Like, I'm afraid someone's going to judge me. Okay, well, what does it feel like to be judged? You've been judged your whole life. Can you handle that?
Yeah.
I know. It's like, go ahead and judge. You don't need to explain yourself to those people. They have their own thoughts about what's going on. Do you really need to let them know why they're wrong because they're so important? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those little things, you just start to, what it is, Heather, is you're maturing. It's like emotional maturity. It's like, oh my God, I'm starting to come out of my cave. Because you know what? I should be afraid of this cave, not what's in reality. I don't want to live in that cave anymore. It's scary in there. It sucks. I'm held hostage by it. I will never go back in there. And there is going to be a switch that flips. It's going to happen for you. And you're close. You're very close to it. Just keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on. As these feelings arise, face them as they arise. You'll find that if you lay down, if you have the opportunity to lay down and don't even move and just breathe it into your lungs and open yourself up to what it is, you're going to have those moments again where you're like, well, it feels like I'm going to die. Well, just face it and you'll find out that actually it was just a fart. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just this little fart of an emotion. Oh, that was it? Yeah. You got it.
If I find out that this rash is related binging for 3 weeks and my system is crazy and just needs to try to get out, I'm just going to
rejoice. Laugh. You're going to rejoice?
Yes.
Yeah. You might need to get, you might need a steroid. You might need an assistant. Who knows? But either way, you have...
Would you say an assistant?
Yeah, like a steroid to assist the body's immune system. Yeah. It didn't work?
No, it worked.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. You've already got your appointment. You're going to go see the doctor tomorrow. They're going to do more tests. So, que sera, sera. What can you do now?
Nothing.
You got it. So, so it is what it is, and until you can, in the meantime, face the Grim Reaper. Keep on facing what this is. There is nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose. And you know what?
This is going to happen anyway.
Correct.
Whether I want to or not.
Yeah. And you needed to go, we could say this rash was maybe the best thing to happen to you.
Well, there's so many causes of rashes. Like, I could have kidney disease, I could have liver failure, I could have kidney failure, I could have, lymphoma, I could have...
You could have been bit by a spider.
I had to get on my neck, and I had it in several places.
Yeah.
So, and I could have diabetes. There's a rash you can get from having diabetes.
Well, of course,
I haven't actually been tested.
No, you do have diabetes, honey. You do. Trust me. If you're binging, every time you binge, you're diabetic. Every time you're in fear, you're diabetic. But it's emotionally induced, right? And obviously the binge, it's food induced. So the more you're doing it, the more diabetic you are, right? So...
Yeah, because I've noticed that the day, it's been like a week I haven't been binging, my eyesight has started to clear up, and that's an indication of diabetes, from high blood sugar. But there's this rash you can get, I can't pronounce it, but it's from diabetes.
Yeah.
And it may or may not go away, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
Well, so you just... You know what? It is what it is. This is what it took for you to face fear. This is what it took for you to finally face your fear.
I guess it's a good thing then.
That's what I meant. Like, we should be grateful. So once you start facing your fears, let's just say this rash goes away. Are you going to go back into not facing your fear and binging again?
Well, hopefully I'll get enough. I guess I need to practice and stay in facing things.
Yes. So it doesn't matter what happens physically. It should not matter what happens physically. Whether the rash stays, whether it goes, you're going to face your fear either way. Whether, if you start to lose weight, let's just say, are you going to stop facing your fear and then going back to binge eating at that point because you're thinner?
No.
That's what you used to do.
Right.
And so it's like, you got to get to the point where you're like, I don't want this relationship with food. I don't want that gratification of binging. What does it do for me? If I'm willing to face fear and that's an immediate reduction of it, I'm handling it instead of trying to control it, why would I need to go binge on food? Now I got physical ailment issues and I feel physically like shit. Right? Think about how bad that fear must have been for you to be okay with that physical consequence and to feel excited about it.
Horribly bad.
You got it. You got it. And that's why it's like so forgivable. Like, really forgive yourself. That's how intense your fear has been and how much it existed. That's how bad it is. So when I see someone who is morbidly obese, I don't see someone who's lazy. I don't see someone who doesn't care about their health. I don't see that at all. What do you think I see? You got it. I see someone who is tortured. They're in torturous fear. They are not in a good state psychologically to the point where they're coping to try to feel better, and food is working for it for the moment. Their food is controlling it. They still have it. They just have to control it. And they're probably feeling horrible about themselves, horrible about what's happening physically. They're relying on some restrictive diet that they know as soon as that diet is over or they've lost weight, they're going to give themselves the keys to go back into binging because they need to for their fear. It's only temporary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're going to get gastric bypass, whether you're going to do the HCG protocol, whether you're going to do whatever you're going to do, if you cannot face your fears, it's not going to work. None of it will.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, now you do, because you're like, holy shit, this is what I need to do.
I get it. I finally get it.
Well, and it's a working process, right? Because there's going to be a fear. You're going to go, I can't handle it. And the fear gets bigger, right?
Yeah, there's so much fear. So.
Well, if you can handle, just go to this one. Can I handle being eaten alive by a tiger with no one around? What do you do in that case? What are you going to do?
Well, in that case, you just have to surrender, because at that point, you have nothing else. There's nothing else to do.
You got it. So then what happens?
And you have peace.
You got it. So you just handled that. You just handled that. It's not like I want to be eaten alive by a tiger. Who wants to be eaten alive by a tiger? Any volunteers? Any volunteers? Fuck no. No. Do I want to suffocate to death? No. Do I want to be heaved off of a cliff to death? Of course not. But you know what? If that is the case, I can surrender to and at least die peacefully.
Yeah.
You know, so if I can handle that, right? If I can accept, I can handle it. So is it really that bad? Is it really that bad? Well, if there's no choice, no. You just accept it, and you feel grateful that it is my job to feed this animal so it can sustain itself and its ecosystem around it.
Yeah, that does help when you stop thinking about yourself and think about
the big picture.
You know,
The big picture.
For somebody else. I was thinking about I pretty much just abandoned. Well, I don't even know if they care, but I moved to Georgia to get away from the rest of my family because I was living with my uncle, and he was always discussing my weight, and I ended up hating him because, he kept saying, you have to do something about your weight.
Well, he clearly didn't understand the underlying issues, but he's, you know what, that's lovingness right there. You understand that was very loving. He cares about you.
Yeah, but I didn't see it that way. And,
of course, yeah.
So anyway, there was some issues. Like he went bankrupt and ended up living with me for several years, and I ended up telling his family that they had to come do something because I couldn't. Anyway, I was like 30 and I didn't have a lot of money, and anyway, so he lives with his daughter now. So I kind of moved to Georgia, and I haven't really been in contact with any of them, and I just feel, I like my uncle as well, but I didn't know how to, I was just in a bad place.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to take care of him.
No. It sounds like you just need to do some reconciling. Like if these are people, let's just say you're going to die in a month. Okay, let's just go there. These are people you care and love about. You probably need to let them know, you know what? Make amends and get peace with these relationships, because either way, let's just say you don't die, you still want to get that done because you want to move forward. You don't want to hold these. You don't want to repress these feelings, and this kind of sounds like you have a little sorrow in there.
Well, when I did it, he lived with me for 8 years, and Anyway, I wanted to move, and he didn't want to move with me, and he wanted me to stay there, and he wasn't bringing in any income.
Yeah.
And so that's how he ended up living there 8 years. It was just going to be a year.
Yeah.
So, on the advice of a friend, I just got all his children together who were also, we were all grown. And
Yeah.
the daughter agreed to, the daughter took over bought my house. Bought my house, and he stayed there and lived in it.
Oh, that is so wonderful. That's wonderful.
And,
yeah.
But I feel like his daughter had some resentment against me because, she had to do all that.
Yeah, well, you got to do what you need to do for your life and don't take responsibility for her. But, at the same time, you can understand. I don't know. It sounds like you need to put some stuff to closure.
Yeah.
Like these things you've been repressing. There's issues underneath all this that, if you could just call, send a letter, say you're sorry, tell them how much you love them and how much you care about them and how grateful and all this stuff. And then it could just release you from the burden of having to stuff those feelings away. This sounds like the 12-step program, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I love the 12 steps. Yeah. I think they become natural too when you go through the process. Instead of forcing it, when you actually come to this point of surrendering naturally, it comes natural to you to go, I really want to make amends with all this shit I've been stuffing down. I need to get it out and start at zero. I don't want to hold these resentments anymore or these fears anymore. And it is a natural process. I think that the two doctors that actually wrote the 12-step program, they went through how they did it, how they recovered, and they had to go back and rewrite, these are the things we did. And so, I don't know, I think people go into the steps as if they're going to force those steps to happen, when in reality, when you're in this space of grace and surrender, it does come naturally to you to do these things. And that's what it sounds like you're doing in your mind. Holy shit, Heather, you have really come a long way.
Well, I hope it's fixed. I'm looking at the time. It's 5:33. You want to stop?
Yeah. Well, it's your choice. You need to see this. It's a matter of you facing these things. That's a choice. You've made a choice to start facing these things, and what's happened?
I'm better.
You got it. So it's not a matter of the better sticks. It's a matter of, are you willing to face these things open-hearted, willfully? That's what you're doing. It's a matter, as long as you're willing to do that, that's how long it's going to stick. Today, how I deal with this stuff is I deal with it as it arises. I don't want to hold on to anything. So if I have conflict, I don't put it in a box and shove it somewhere, because that doesn't work for me. I won't do it that way. I will address it as it arises. I will surrender it as it arises. If I'm being eaten by a tiger, I will accept it as it occurs. If someone stops me in the middle of the street, puts a gun to me and says, give me your car, I'll be like, okay, here you go, as it arises. Take your clothes off. Okay. I'm willfully surrendering.
Yeah.
Because reality is going to be reality whether you like it or not. So you might as well just accept it. It kind of goes back to, how would you live your next life, getting a new body? Well, your
it's
first...
time for you to go.
I know. Thank you. See? I told you. All right.
Okay. I'll text you later to reschedule.
Awesome. Awesome, Heather. Okay. Awesome. I'm glad we got this in. Okay, bye.